All right, everyone. So again, my name's Charlene Obernaur, and I am one of the co-founders of the New York Healthy Nail Salons Coalition, and I'm also the executive director at NYCOSH. At NYCOSH, we founded the coalition with Adhikar, which is a Nepali worker/community center in Jackson Heights, Queens. And we co-founded the coalition in July of 2014. And if it seems like I'm speaking a little slowly, I'm just giving time for the interpreters. So I always speak really fast. So I'm trying to make sure I don't speak too quickly today. This first image is a report release with then public advocate Letitia James. This was the release of her report, How Safe is Your Salon? And you may know Tish James if you're from a national audience. She is now the Attorney General in New York State and has gotten some nationwide fame recently. But at that time, she was the public advocate of New York City, which is, I think, a unique position to New York City, where she acts as an advocate on various consumer and worker issues. This was really one of the first times that we did an event publicly as a coalition. And we then organized for May Day actions, which many of you are probably familiar. On May 1st of every year, it's International Workers of the World Day. And so many workers will take part in various actions. And we decided that we would use the opportunity, along with Adhikar, for Adhikar to release their poster that they had worked on, an educational poster called Healthy Salon for All, and to release a series of, like, really a package of legislation to try to improve safety in nail salons and health in nail salons. And it was really interesting timing, because a few days later, Sarah Maslin-Nier of the New York Times released her article, The Price of Nice Nails. And I believe the California Collaborative was quoted in this article along with other advocates. And I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you, this really served as a trigger point for much of the advocacy victories that we won thereafter. So this image I really like, because this is how the Bill of Rights for nail salon workers is usually posted in a salon, among many other notices around wage and hour and health and safety. So there was a package of executive orders and legislation to improve the nail salon industry. And one of these pieces, one of these components of the legislation was this Bill of Rights for nail salon workers, that anywhere in New York State, you have to post this Bill of Rights in the language that the workers speak, in a prominent place in the salon, and it's required by law that it be placed. So this was really helpful because it also had hotline information that workers could call in any language and could report information about their wages or about health and safety issues. And so workers, now had a direct line to the New York State Department of Labor if they needed support. So in addition to the Workers' Bill of Rights, we also had actions to support a wage bond in the industry to guarantee that workers, if they had their wages stolen from them, would be able to reclaim their wages. And what you see here is a picture of one of the activists in our coalition with a sign that says, "Support the wage bond, support workers." And ultimately now that is the law. You have to have wage bonds in nail salons in order to operate in New York State. So this next piece requires a little bit of explaining. So one of the issues that we found as we were interviewing workers and having convenings with workers, and when I say we generally in this presentation, I'm referring to either NICOSH or ADICAR, because we work really closely as a coalition. So yeah, it's either of us. We just kind of use the we to refer to the entire coalition. And so when we held a convening of workers, we found that an issue that a lot of people brought up was around licensing, and the fact that it was really hard to get a license. You had to be a certified nail technician in order to get your like legal status to work in a salon, and it was really tedious and it was really expensive. So the government created a trainee license where if you worked in a salon, you would just fill out a simple form and you could be registered as a trainee. And it was through that license that that trainee license that a lot of workers became registered. I also want to highlight a language justice victory. For years, we had, I mean, I honestly can't even believe that I remember when this was the case, but I can't even believe that this was the case because so many workers in the industry speak Nepali. And of course, so many workers in the industry speak Vietnamese. And the exam, the written exam that you had to take to become a licensed manicurist was not available in these languages. So you would have to take the exam in English in order to become a licensed manicurist. And obviously this is ridiculous. So this law got changed about 7 years ago. So I wanted to show a picture of one of our graduation parties at the New York Nail Salon Workers School. This event was the highlight, or like the party that we had after we founded our school. And this is essentially a beauty school that you can attend to get your permanent license. But it's free to get this license in our school. So we were able to secure funding for my public health people out there from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences around infectious disease training. And we were able to use this funding as a launch point for the school itself. And so the school was founded in 2016. To date, we've had almost 900 people graduate from our school and go on to get their permanent licenses. I saw in the chat, isn't a state license required to work at a nail salon? Yes, it is. And this is why we founded the school, because we wanted to make it easier for workers. Some of the schools were charging $1,500, $2,000. I don't know about you, but I think for any working class person, that's a lot of money, let alone how much that is if you are making less than $15 an hour, as we know many nail salon workers are. So nail salon workers, had trouble affording other schools. So we decided to get public funding to support our school. And that's what we did. So again, now we have 900 people who've graduated from our school and who've gone on to get their permanent licenses. And something else different about our work is that we have a 95% pass rate for people who graduate from our school and go on to take the state exam. And we're really proud of that number. Most of the schools hover around a 60% pass rate. And that's numbers that we've gotten from the New York Department of State, which controls the nail salon licensing schools. And it's because we are focused on workers passing the state exam. We are focused on workers who struggle with literacy. And of course, we teach workers in their native languages. So this is really a big victory. And as a coalition, we work to get funding for the school now through New York City. And so our school is entirely funded at this point through New York City government. So the other regulations I wanted to talk about is ventilation. In October 2016, ventilation regulations were implemented in nail salons. And for our ventilation folks, this required HVAC and source capture ventilation in every new salon, and existing salons had 5 years to comply with the legislation. And the image that I'm sharing is an image that we actually had all of these ventilation protests to support the ventilation regulations. I know it's a rare thing when you have people protesting for ventilation because it's not always seen as like, by the majority of people. You oftentimes wouldn't see people coming together around an issue like ventilation because it seems kind of technical. But we did education with our base, and workers understood how important ventilation was to their health. And so we were able to have this action. The other campaign I want to highlight that we were very involved in as a coalition is the One Fair Wage campaign. And this, as is the case in many states, and as is the case in many industries, there was what's called a sub-minimum wage for nail salon workers, where they were not making the minimum wage in New York State, which is $15 an hour. So the One Fair Wage campaign launched to win $15 an hour for nail salon workers. And this is an image from one of the actions, of which we had many. And I'll talk about that later, but I guess the spoiler is that we won that campaign. The nail salon workers now have to make at least $15 an hour in New York State. The other thing I want to highlight is as this was going on, as we were kind of advocating for one fair wage, we also targeted a series of actions against one employer called Envy Nails, because there was pretty significant cases of wage theft in that salon. So this is an image from one of those actions. It says, "Nice nails, better pay." And this was how we kind of rallied to support nail salon workers in these salons that were having their wages stolen from them, excuse me. So, this presentation is set up as a timeline. So if you're wondering why I'm going back and forth, it's because I'm kind of showing like the series of events that have happened. It's one way to do it. I'm sure I could have done it a different way. But we internally advocated for oral exams or spoken exams for limited literacy nail salon workers, because we did do some literacy work with workers, and Adhikar does some literacy work for workers where they try to build literacy among their population of workers. But if you're familiar with these exams, they use a pretty advanced and technical language, regardless of what language you speak. And so for a lot of workers, it was really, really difficult to pass these tests when it was written, because they didn't have high levels of literacy in their language. And so we won oral exams for technicians, Now what you have to do is just request that you receive an oral exam, and you will get an oral exam. I see a question from Jamie. Did the beauty school setup in New York include trainings on harmful chemicals? Yes, there is trainings on right to know. There's trainings on OSHA. You know, we talk about the hierarchy of hazard control. I'd be happy to kind of share the curriculum that we have, because we worked directly with the Department of State on the curriculum to try to make sure, and it was kind of a compromise, not even a compromise, it was kind of a back and forth as to what they thought you needed to know in nail salons, and then what we thought you needed to know in nail salons. And what we thought you needed to know was very specific to the job. And some of the information that they thought you needed to know was a bit more technical than we thought was necessary. So we did have this like back and forth with the Department of State on all of these things.
Great. Thanks, Charlene. Just to note, if you could wrap things up because we're at time. Sorry.
Yes. Let me get towards, so we won the fight for $15, right? Just the last thing. So now we have a director of our coalition. We're advocating for the Nail Salon Minimum Standards Council legislation, which would set up a table among owners and workers to set standards in nail salons. And particularly just to look at how can we make sure everybody's following the law, because you can pass as many laws as you want. That doesn't mean that people are going to follow them, right? So this is another picture of a rally where we advocated for our legislation. And finally, I totally will wrap with outstanding issues. The reason why we want the Nail Salon Minimum Standards Council Act is because the $15 an hour is not being implemented in a lot of salons. And for the second time in a row, the ventilation standards, remember before I was like, oh, we passed ventilation standards. Well, for existing salons, they had 5 years to comply. That 5 years was October of 2021. The governor extended the period by 6 months. And then just recently, she extended the period another 6 months. So the standards have been delayed. So yeah, that's it for my presentation. Thank you so much. I'll stop my